Welcome to the Chronically Healthy Life Show. When you hear the word chronically, do you automatically associate it with chronic disease? We all do. It's been programmed right into us. But what if we flip that whole idea on its head? Let's discover how we can create chronic health in our bodies, our minds, our finances, our relationships, and in our lives. Tonight, I am so excited. We're diving into a topic that's touching far too many families, and that's the explosion of aggressive cancers that we've been seeing over the last few years. And I've been seeing so much of this with friends and family. And back with us by popular demand is Nicolas Hulscher, epidemiologist and administrator with the McCullough Foundation. Since 2023, Nicolas has contributed to 17 peer-reviewed scientific studies that have advanced our understanding of COVID-19 vaccine injury syndromes and their potential treatments. And you may remember him from our Chronic Health Collective Masterclass, where he dropped some serious truth bombs. We knew we just had to bring him back for our show and go a little deeper. Nicolas, welcome back to our show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Nicolas, the last time that we spoke on the Masterclass, you shared some data that shocked a lot of our viewers with all the side effects that the COVID vaccines have shown. And we briefly talked about the rise of cancer diagnosis since 2021. And I was hoping that we can dive into that a little bit because, during that time when we had our interview, you didn't have all the studies out yet. Can you give us an overview of what you and your other researchers are actually seeing right now about all these rise in cancer?
Yes. So, the last time we spoke, there wasn't much. There was a few reports, anecdotal reports here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's literally confirmed that these mRNA shots unleashed a turbo cancer epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, and we'll go through the four bodies of evidence. But I know we want to save the second segment for genomic integration,
yes,
which plays an integral role. So we'll save the mechanistic evidence for later. But regarding these two new studies, so one of them, so first of all, is the only two population level studies that looked at COVID-19 vaccines and cancer risk, both found major increases in multiple cancers. And both of these studies literally came out in like the past month.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one was out of Italy.
Okay.
They followed 300,000 Italians for about 30 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they compared the vaccinated population to the unvaccinated population over those 30 months.
Mm-hmm.
And as many of us may have expected, the vaccinated population suffered 23% overall increased risk of any type of cancer hospitalization.
Mm-hmm.
But they also suffered increased risks, about 30 to 60% of breast cancer, bladder cancer, and colorectal cancer as well, on top of the overall risk. So that study was the first population study to lay the groundwork for this, that we do see these large increased risks.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other study from South Korea by Kim and colleagues
Mm-hmm.
Corroborated the Italian one quite drastically. They had 8 million people they looked at in
Whoa,
that
8
study.
million. Okay.
8 million.
Yes.
And then so they compared the vaccinated to the
Yeah.
unvaccinated in South Korea, this
Mm-hmm.
massive data set. But they found 27% increased risk in overall cancers, but they found increases in 6 distinct types of cancer,
Wow.
increased risks, about 40 to 90% increased risk of colorectal, breast, gastric, thyroid, a few others. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head
Yeah.
because there's too many of these cancers.
Yeah.
So you have all these cancers, 6 distinct types, corroborating the Italian study. But the concerning thing about the South Korean one with 8 million people was that they found that the viral vector COVID shots, the
Mhm.
AstraZenecas, the Johnson and Johnsons,
Mhm.
they found that those were carcinogenic and linked to a 40% increased risk of cancer, higher
Oh,
than the
wow.
mRNA.
Those are actually higher.
Yes, it was higher than the mRNA. The mRNA was, about 27%. So
Right.
this was unexpected. Nobody expected this.
Mhm.
Nobody even assumed these viral vector ones were
Right.
carcinogenic, but it appears that they are. It appears that all COVID vaccine platforms are carcinogenic. Central to them is the spike protein. So that's obviously a key factor that
Mhm.
we think does induce carcinogenesis. But the other things is we really thought the mRNA mechanisms were really, really driving these cancers.
Mhm.
And we'll go through that in the next segment. But so this viral vector one, these viral vectors, it uses adenovirus, a modified
Mhm.
adenovirus, literally a chimpanzee adenovirus. And so they have this modified thing, and they put DNA in it, and so this chimpanzee virus goes into your cells and instructs them with the DNA to produce the spike protein. So, yeah, it's not unexpected that that's also carcinogenic when
Mhm.
you really think about it. But yeah, it was shocking nonetheless. But yeah, overall, these 2 studies also corroborate somebody named Ethical Skeptic. He has performed data analysis over the past 5 years looking at excess cancer deaths
Mhm.
with using official CDC data. And he has found, I mean, ever since 2021, excess cancer rates are just skyrocketing, way over baseline, way over pre-pandemic baseline.
Mhm.
And so there's been over 110,000 excess cancer deaths in the United States, since 2021. So all of this stuff corroborates, and we can now say, yeah, for sure that these
Mhm.
shots unleash a turbo cancer epidemic.
Wow, that is crazy. I have 2 follow-up questions on that because I didn't even hear about the viral vector vaccines. Isn't that technology even similar to what they're using in the regular flu vaccines?
No, no. So
Okay.
the regular flu vaccines, it'll just be like a killed virus or
Okay.
some antigens,
Okay.
right, with an adjuvant to invoke immune
Okay.
response. So yeah, those are conventional flu
Okay.
shots. But yeah, these viral vector ones, they're also quite uh, Frankenstein-like,
Mhm.
to put it. I'm not aware of any other vaccines that
That even
use
that
that
technology.
platform
Okay.
that are in widespread use.
Okay, yeah, because back in the day, that was supposed to be the safer vaccines. That's what they pushed, right, over the mRNA. So that is actually very surprising to me. On the second note, you mentioned that these are exploding 27 to 40% over the last 3 years. So what are your, I get so many of my, viewers and people arguing with me. There's a big growth in cancer because of the lockdown and they didn't get diagnosed. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, so that's why we saw a dip in cancers in 2020, because there were less people going to the hospital. There were less people being diagnosed, but that does not account for the massive excess we're seeing now, right? You would just, so if it was just delayed diagnosis, right, you would see it kind of, right? So it goes down in 2020, people are locked down. And then if it was just, they weren't going, it should just kind of rebound and stay, to where the baseline was before. But that's not what's happening. It's just shooting up and it's not coming down. And but the key thing is the two studies we just talked about, they literally compared the vaccinated to unvaccinated populations, looking specifically at cancer risk, accounting for age, accounting for healthcare utilization, accounting for even COVID infection, right? So these are very robust studies, and they're finding these cancer signals, particularly in the vaccinated. So it's not just healthcare utilization.
No, that's good to know, because like I said, that's the first argument I get all the time. The other argument I get, and this one drives me nuts, because from my understanding, normally when you get cancer, they give you stages like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But what we're seeing now is almost explosion of stage 4. And like when I'm talking to some of my California friends or people that are in the medical field, sometimes that just happens. And it's like, well, how do you go like 0 to 60 literally within months? And they don't have an explanation for that. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. So that's what's called turbo cancer.
Yeah.
That's literally the definition. They find usually they're fine, completely healthy, no health problems. They get the shot. They get the mRNA shot or the viral vector shot. And then few weeks go by, a month goes by, 2 months go by, and they have very terrible symptoms, very severe symptoms. They're very tired. They're very nauseous. They're having all sorts of weird things happening. So they go to the doctor's office. They get checked, and they find these tumors in literally every organ system because it's already metastasized. It is an extremely accelerated presentation of cancer, these turbo cancers. They literally just grow unchecked and jump to stage 4 very, very quickly. And they are very treatment resistant, and they are very deadly, very fatal. And so that's what's most concerning about this, right? So if you were exposed to asbestos or and you got mesothelioma like you see in all those commercials, right? That takes like decades to develop, right? You're not just going to drop dead and have it spread to your entire body in the span of a week or 2 weeks. So that's what's so bad about this mRNA technology and these COVID shots, is that this was never seen before. This is a completely new thing. And it's reaching mainstream now that younger populations are now seeing drastic increases in cancers, particularly colorectal. And that was found in the 2 studies we just talked about. Both of them found increased risks in colorectal cancer. So that explains why all of a sudden we have 12-year-olds developing these giant tumors in their colons, right? That should not happen.
This is a loaded question. Why do you think, because when I tell people all the studies are out there, you just have to look for them, right? Because we're talking about 300,000 Italians and 8 million South Koreans. These are big studies. These are not small peer-reviewed studies out there. Mainstream media is not shared anywhere. Like, why do you think that's the case?
Well, there's one instance. There's one instance of them sharing this study, but you're right. Overall, there's been no sharing.
Yes.
No, not on Fox News, not on CNN, but where it was on Al Jazeera. But what did they do? Of course, as we'd all expect, they tried to debunk it.
Yes.
They tried to say it's false and everything it says is wrong, and they conflate causation with correlation in an attempt to make the reader think that everything the study says is false. So they're using all sorts of tricks to trick their readership. But one thing about that article was they literally defamed me. They defamed me. They say Nicolas Hulscher claims he's an epidemiologist. They put epidemiologist in quotes. So they're literally saying I'm just making up what I do for a living.
Correct.
Even though I now have an H index of 7, which is pretty good for just starting publishing papers 2 years ago. You know, and I've published over 20 scientific studies since 2023, and they're widely cited, right? So that's what an epidemiologist does. So they just literally make stuff up, lie.
Correct.
And so since they can't really debunk the study well, they resort to defamation.
Yes.
And so that's expected. So yeah, that's all we've got from mainstream media on this.
Yeah, and that's a shame. And like I said, I'm hoping more people's going to see this episode, because I'm going to share this as wide as I can before seeing which platforms is going to try to take it out. But, you know, that's the hard truth. You know, science, it really should be more about curiosity and not conformity, right? Like everyone's trying to block all this information, but all the truth is coming out. And I think it's just so amazing that you are doing the work you're doing. And even when there's so many haters out there, or so many people that just don't really want to admit that possibly they took the wrong advice and took the shot, right? I think it's important, like you said, showing that with all the studies proving that this causes cancer now. You know, I think last time we talked about what is the website again for checking, you know, how toxic the shot is again? Maybe we can remind our viewers on that.
Yeah, if you go to howbadismybatch.com, you will be able to search the batch you got, right? So you'll literally go look at your vaccine card, and if you put it in, you'll see how many deaths was it associated with, how many pulmonary embolisms, strokes, myocarditis reports. You'll see all of that, and that can kind of give you a good overview of what risks, you know, you may have faced, because all the batches were different.
Correct.
But also the thing is with these batches is if you got E, if the first letter was E, that stands for extreme death risk. Now, not literally, not, you know, that's not what they say, but that's what it stands for. We found that literally 98% of the most lethal batches start with E.
Wow.
So yeah, so if you got E, you know, it might be wise to do some risk stratification and ensure, you know, your heart's functioning properly.
It's interesting because after our masterclass, one of my friends got tested and she did get the E. Like she was like totally freaking out and reaching out to me and wanted to get the, you know, the antibody test, and hers came out at 800, not super high, but way higher than most of people that I know that didn't get vaccinated. And of course, you know, she's watching this episode tonight, waiting to learn more too, because, you know, I think she's just one of those people that listened to the wrong doctor or friends and got it. But now she knows she wants to do something about it. Right. So that's amazing, Nicolas. I think this is a powerful start. After a break, we're going to talk a little bit about what's really happening at the cellular level. And then in the third segment, we're going to jump into some treatments. But we'll be right back after this break.
Why do 98% of beauty enthusiasts rave about coolness? It's all in the blend of ancient wisdom and modern science. Introducing Coolness, Pearlescent Face and Eye Serum Cream. This powerhouse combines the antioxidative power of schisandra berries, the glow of pearl powder, and the hydrating wonders of dragon's blood extract. It's like a time machine for your skin, making it radiant, firm, and oh so smooth. Inspired by ancient Chinese traditions and backed by modern nutritional science, this serum cream is perfect for dry, mature, and aging skin. It's time to unlock your inner glow with coolness. Treat your skin to the best of both worlds today.
Welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life Show. We're here with Nicolas Hulscher from the McCullough Foundation. So in segment 1 of our interview, we covered the data, 300,000 people, Italians, 8 million South Koreans. Now, let's go a little deeper. You mentioned there were a few more studies, and we're going to dive into one of those studies here, Nicolas, on what's really happening inside at a cellular level. I saw one of the articles, and you talked about genomic integration. Can you put that in plain English? What does that actually mean?
So genomic integration means some sort of external genetic material fuses into your own DNA. So that's what that means. That means something is integrating into your DNA, or what's called your genome, which contains all your DNA. So that's what that is. But yeah, we just published now in the peer-reviewed literature. It passed peer review successfully, and so this is very worrisome. This is very worrisome, and so it's now confirmed that these mRNA shots can most definitely, in some individuals, integrate into the genome. And we can walk through this study, what we did, what we found, because I think it's very, very important. So I guess the first thing I can say is, all right, so we have to start from the very beginning. So the first thing about this case is it is a 31-year-old woman.
31-year-old, not even old. Like, that's 31. Really young.
Yes, 31-year-old woman. And so what was strange, right? So she came in to Dr. John Catanzaro, contacted him, right? He's the lead author of this study from Ep7 Bioscience. And she was diagnosed with a stage 4 bladder cancer, right? A stage 4 bladder cancer. This is a very, very, very rare cancer in this age group, particularly already at stage 4. So that's what led us to believe, like, okay, this is a turbo cancer. So what are we going to do? We got to look and see, what's happening. Why did she get this turbo cancer? So she got 3 doses of Moderna injections.
Wow.
And then within a year developed this cancer. So it was very quick. And so we looked in her what's called circulating tumor DNA. So that's DNA just circulating through the body from these tumors, right? And so that's how you can kind of look and see, well, what's in this tumor. We not only looked at that, we looked at what's called multi-omic evidence. So that was her proteomic and transcriptomic profiles. So that's that's kind of the inner workings of, very deep down molecularly. Transcriptomic is what's called gene expressions, which give your body the instructions to make proteins, which is proteomic. So we looked at all that, and all of that was completely defective and going haywire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we found many genes were severely dysregulated, particularly genes related to DNA repair, right? So those were literally being shut off. So what that means is her DNA could not repair itself very efficiently, which leaves it open to what's called double-strand break. So this DNA is kind of breaking. It can't heal itself. And because it's in that state, that gives some that increases the probability that external genetic code can get in there, right, while it's kind of broken. And so that's what appears to have happened. So we identified what's called a 20 base pair segment from the mRNA vaccine DNA plasmid, right? So that's uploaded online, its entire sequence. And there was a 20-20 base pair match between what inside the circulating tumor DNA in chromosome 19 and the plasmid reference. So the DNA plasmid that they use at the manufacturing process to make the mRNA. So a perfect 20/20 match, and it was a chimeric match. And what that means is it wasn't just we just found this 20 base pair segment just laying around. It was chimeric, which means it goes from human reads, human genes, and then boom, you get to boom, the mRNA injection gene, and then more human genes. So it was literally appeared to be fused in chimerically. And so that's what was very worrisome. And so the probability of this just being an anomaly and random chance is literally 1 in a trillion.
Right? 1 in a trillion.
1 in a trillion, right, to find this. And so all of this combined, the genomic integration event, the multi-omic evidence and genetic dysregulation we saw, and the clinical presentation of a very rare stage 4 bladder cancer leads us to believe that this appears to be what happened. This genetic code literally inserted itself into some cell lines, and then those cell lines began to propagate, right? So what happens is the mRNA doesn't just the vaccine genetic code doesn't just automatically get into every single cell. It gets into one cell, but then the cells replicate, right? Then right, our cells replicate all the time, and so every time that one will replicate, it's going to be corrupted with this vaccine genetic material. And so that just keeps going on and on and on and on. And then all of a sudden you'll have extremely corrupted cells that will start to multiply and turn into these cancers. So that's what appears to be the case here. And, this is a sentinel report, which means it is the very first report of this instance documenting direct evidence of this. So we need now large cohort studies. We need all hands on deck here. We need longer read sequencing, it's called, to kind of look more intensively at this. So this is just the starting point, right? This serves as the warning signal that this can happen, but we do need further validation, and we need it fast.
So let me understand this, because from the very, very beginning, when they call it mRNA shots, they assured everyone this will never integrate or modify your DNA. Like that was like very, very in the very beginning when they said safe and effective. Part of it was, this is safe. It's not going to travel anywhere in your body. It's going to stay in your arm. And don't worry, it will never modify your DNA. This study is showing for a fact that it's a perfect copy within the cell. And it's a perfect copy, not just partial copy, but it's actually a perfect copy integrated into the human genome.
Yes, 20 base pairs. So that's the kind of standard that's used to kind of tell, is this human or not? Correct. And this is not human. So yeah, again, we need further validation, further tests in other patients to really fully drill down and fully confirm this. But the probability of this just being chance is very, very, very almost impossible.
Correct.
Almost impossible that this was just random or some glitch. So this is not good. And Pfizer still claims on their website that these injections cannot alter your DNA.
Exactly.
And they use a reference. So they say COVID vaccines do not change your DNA. And then they give the endnote reference. That reference is a completely unrelated paper on SARS-CoV-2 evolution. So they're literally just lying and giving references supporting their statements that have nothing to do with the statement. So
wow.
but that's not surprising from somebody involved in, or from an entity involved in large numbers of criminal activities.
Right.
Over 100 documented penalties, paying out billions in fines for fraud and other terrible things, bribery, criminal activities, false advertising. So, so that's not unexpected, unfortunately.
Correct. But then, like you said, this will explain what we talked about in the first segment, why it's a turbo cancer rather than a cancer that happens over time.
Right. Yeah, this was a very quick, again, within a year, gets to stage 4, very fast, a very rare presentation. Again, 31-year-old women do not usually get bladder cancers, particularly stage 4. So all of the criteria were really met for the classification of being a turbo cancer.
So with understanding what you're saying, it actually compromises the good cells to help repair itself. How are turbo cancer treatments different from traditional treatments? Because from my understanding, like you said in the very beginning, they're not very treatable. Once they're diagnosed, a lot of times, most of the times, it's terminal for people. Like, why is that normal treatment that may work for traditional cancers not working for the turbo cancers?
Right, because the turbo cancers stem from something we don't fully understand, which is the technology employed with these shots. It is a gene therapy, right?
Correct.
So we don't really understand the full mechanistic profile of why this is happening, but it appears it is occurring at the molecular level, at the genetic level, and in some cases inducing very long-lasting and persistent damage. And so now, if one of the primary mechanisms is genomic integration for these cancers, that will be very, very hard to treat without addressing that root cause, which we currently do not know how to do. Now, there's other mechanisms, such as, we talked about earlier, the spike protein does suppress tumor suppressor genes, P53 and BRCA. So, that itself is very long lasting and persistent in the body. But that's a key thing to address for sure, because we have some tools to kind of help the body eliminate the spike. So that should be a priority. It appears when dealing with a vaccine injury of any type is getting rid of that. The genetic material, we still don't know how to get rid of that. But, we're trying to find ways.
Correct. So I hate to say this isn't conspiracy anymore, right? This is like emerging science. Is like you said, this is like the first study proving that there's genomic integration into the cell. Do you think there's going to be more and more studies showing people with stage 4 having something similar? If people, I guess if more people are willing to do the studies, because what surprises me is why was there only one study done so far? You would think that there'll be more studies with the explosion of these turbo cancers, right?
Right. Well, that's the problem. Many labs are not looking for this issue. They're not looking for genomic integration events. But the thing is so this study corroborates a study. Our study finding this integration corroborates a study by Alden and colleagues from a few years ago. They did a study in a test tube, and they found Pfizer mRNA reverse transcribes into DNA in a human liver cell in 6 hours, right? So
I saw that study. Yes.
Yeah. So we have already, tabletop lab evidence that these activities can occur, right? So now we have this case that it can occur in a human being. Now the next step is getting like large samples of 10, 20 people and just who all develop cancers, and then just really digging deep and looking into, did this material integrate? And that would help solve this problem much quicker, because you'd think the government would be pouring so much money into this, because 80% of Americans received the COVID shot.
Exactly.
So it's so important. So, where's all the money? Where's the billions of dollars? That's what they should be pouring this into, so we can get to the bottom of this.
You hit a major point. About 80%, and this is, we're just talking about the U.S. population. I know in certain countries it's much higher than that. Got vaccinated with these toxic vaccines. Let's talk about the emotional impact. I'm sure there's so many people freaking out right now as they're listening into our post, because for the longest time, these were all conspiracy theories, right? Now we are actually talking about proof that there are such things as turbo cancers, and your genes are being modified, which can actually cause these turbo cancers. What's your message to them at this point? Now that you are helping spread the education out there, like you're getting the message out there, this can happen. What should people be doing with this information that you and the McCullough Foundation is sharing with the world right now?
Right. Well, people should be sharing this far and wide to get everybody to stop making a horrible choice and receiving more booster injections, because they are being fraudulently perpetuated and recommended despite all these cancer risks. So everybody still taking these shots don't know that they cause cancer. They don't know. They don't receive this information. So the best thing people can do is share it. Share these studies with them and help them understand, because we don't want anybody else to develop a turbo cancer. Correct. We don't want more people to be harmed. So that's the big next step. The very first step has to be to stop the rollout and distribution of these, to limit the damage. And then we can, and at the same time, though, we have to start to find solutions to this.
That is beautifully said, Nicolas. Up next, we're going to talk about hope that we're going to have, because like I said, we don't want to be scaring people and not giving them hope. So we're going to talk about some repurposed treatments that were banned for a few years, right? So we're going to talk about that and what's showing up some real promise in lab and real world cases. I'd love to dive into that with you on the third segment. We'll be right back.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science, at longevity, at exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take control of your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Imagine a life where every day is fueled by energy, vitality, and purpose. Where age is just a number and your best years are always ahead. Hi, I'm Andy Nam, certified functional nutrition longevity coach, best-selling author, and international speaker. After reversing my own chronic health struggles, I'm now on a mission to help you live longer, stronger, and of course to look younger. I combine biohacking, cutting-edge nutrition, and stem cell technology to unlock your body's full potential. So no matter where your starting point is, I'm going to guide you toward a chronically healthy life. Ready to reverse aging and take control of your future? Connect with me today. Your journey to longevity starts here. Welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life Show. Thank you, Nicolas, so far. My mind is getting blown right now with all the information you're sharing. And because like one of my dear family members just got diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer, and they already told her there's nothing they can do, right? So it just really breaks our heart. We're trying to share all this information 3 years ago, but because we're saying theoretically this can happen, they thought we're crazy. But now all the studies are showing it, and this is one of those situations, as a longevity coach, I hate being right? So, I love to dive into some solutions. Maybe we can give some hope to the people out there that has this spike protein, that has this mRNA. toxins in their body. So in your work with the McCullough Foundation, I know you looked at several compounds that's being studied right now for potential anti-cancer properties. And there are two of them that are really surprising. And they are ivermectin and fenbendazole. What's the science showing so far on these two things that were only meant to be for horses?
Right. Yeah, this is not just horse paste. That's for
Yes.
sure. That's for sure. We've reviewed all the evidence. There's been a few breaking studies that have recently come out on ivermectin and fenbendazole and cancer.
Mhm.
Right. So first, I'd like to say, I'm not a physician. I can't make any,
Of course.
medical claims or give
Yes.
medical advice. But so what I'm discussing is this is what the science and evidence now shows.
Mhm.
So first off, let's start with fenbendazole because this recent study came out. So fenbendazole is a very cheap anti-parasitic, right? It's used all around the world. It has a very safe. It's very safe. It has a good safety profile. And so what happened is a few months ago, Dr. William Mackis published a case series of stage 4 cancer patients. So again, they're at the last stage. The
Yes.
cancer's metastasized to all the organs. And so what he did was they gave them a fenbendazole protocol, which so one of the cases was a stage 4 melanoma, skin cancer. One of them was a stage 4 breast cancer, and one of them was a stage 4 prostate cancer. And so all three of them were, not doing good at all.
Yeah.
They received the fenbendazole, and they start to take this protocol, over the period of about a year. And it was in combination in some of these cases with, one of them had a surgery. One of them may have had a few other medications, but none of them had chemo.
Correct.
Right? None of them had chemo, but they were on this fenbendazole. And so all of them two of them experienced complete remission.
Wow.
Complete remission.
Okay.
So no evidence of disease. It's called NED. Literally, no, you couldn't find any tumors. One of them was near remission, which means basically he's very close. A lot of these tumors have shrunken, been knocked out. But regardless, that is very, very promising to see in real humans. So what's needed now is large-scale clinical trials.
Correct.
Immediately, because it's very important. And the other compounds, ivermectin, very similar, not the exact same thing, but basically the same thing as fenbendazole. Anti-parasitic, safe, been given around the world for many things, river blindness, parasites, even skin conditions now it's been approved for. So it's been in widespread use. We know it was demonized during the pandemic.
Yes.
For COVID treatment, even known the largest meta-analysis ever. It's got like hundreds of studies in it. Found that ivermectin is a potent antiviral and is actually lowers hospitalization, death from COVID-19. So there's that. But so with cancer, there was a systematic review recently published that looked at all the studies that looked at ivermectin in cancer. It combined all of it. And what they found was 14 distinct anti-cancer mechanisms verified in the laboratory with ivermectin in cancer. So they take all these cancer cells in the lab and they expose it to ivermectin. And in all of these cases, it literally destroys these cancers via these 14 mechanisms. And one of these mechanisms, so a lot of them have to do with upregulating certain expressions related to being able to fight off cancer, but a lot of them have to do with literally destroying the cancer cells itself. And it's been shown to destroy cancer stem cells, which is an important mechanism.
Yes.
So just so many things it's been shown to do, many complicated words and complicated pathways that nobody's going to know what I'm talking about. But in general, we know it has anti-cancer activity. And so that's huge. And then they also found it's safe in all of the human studies that took ivermectin and had cancer, they found it was completely safe, even when they were taking chemo.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they found a few anecdotal reports of remission as well. And so, again, very, very promising. But most recently with ivermectin, and it's not in humans, but it's
Mm-hmm.
nice. It's at least in an animal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's in a living being. What they did was they developed nano ivermectin. So this is ivermectin kind of encapsulated in nano. They're not lipid nanoparticles, right? So they're not dangerous like with the mRNA shots. It's just a form of a small, I believe it's called a micelle, but they basically made it very small, so it can penetrate cells and penetrate the blood-brain barrier to reach a glioblastoma. So they implanted these rats with glioblastomas, which is one of the most lethal cancers in existence. Only 15-month median survival time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what they did was they implanted the tumors, right? And so they gave the rats intranasal nano ivermectin,
Mm-hmm.
intranasal. And so what that means is a nasal spray.
Correct.
And then they gave them intranasal normal ivermectin, what's called free ivermectin, nothing done to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they found in the nano ivermectin group, it shrunk the tumors by 70%.
Whoa.
70% of those
Mm-hmm.
glioblastomas were gone.
Correct.
And it was accompanied by zero toxicity,
Mm-hmm.
zero biological toxicity, all blood parameters, immune parameters, cell function, cell viability. It was all perfect. So it was not causing any damage in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very, 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 very promising. And I've received now many messages since that study came out of like, well, where can I get this nano
Yes.
ivermectin? Right. Well, it appears it's a brand new type of compound that's now
Right.
being developed. It's now being designed, and so this shows lots of promise for sure. And what's interesting though is in the free ivermectin group,
Mm-hmm.
which was not the nano version, it did not shrink the cancer
Oh, wow.
significantly.
Okay.
It did not, but that's because it won't pass the blood-brain
The
barrier. The
blood-brain barrier.
molecules,
Exactly.
yeah, the molecules are too big. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so advancements in some biotechnology aspects can be good, right?
Yeah.
When they're used for good purposes. But like with the mRNA shots, those advances, they're not advances, they are deadly experiments, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
some advances in biotechnology can be good, such as in this instance. So, yeah, that's basically the general overview of the recent evidence on ivermectin and fenbendazole.
One of the things that's interesting to me is, not trying to go political here, but they talked about the Tylenol and autism, and I'm not going to go one way or the other there, okay? But I did, and once again, I'm not a doctor, I'm a functional nutritionist, so I'm not talking about anything to heal, cure anything. But I do know that Tylenol technically has quite a few side effects, right? You know what I'm saying? It can lower your glutathione, which actually lowers your immune system. It can hurt your liver and everything. But what are the side effects for ivermectin that you have seen in your studies?
Right. So if you take too much ivermectin, it will also be toxic, right? I mean, taking too much of anything will be toxic. So that would involve so it's called central nervous system effects. So ivermectin appears to act on the central nervous system slightly. It's non-toxic when you take the recommended dose, but if you start popping, large amounts of ivermectin, you can see some central nervous system toxicity, including, dizziness, fatigue. And if you really OD, you could possibly even go into a coma in very severe cases, right? So again, with all of these compounds, you got to be careful. You can't just be popping them like candy, but it is still safer than Tylenol. Right?
Yes.
So just, again, if you pop a bottle of Tylenol, you're going to die of liver failure. If you pop a bottle of ibuprofen, you will also die of liver failure. So again, it's the same thing, but what the evidence shows is actually ivermectin still appears to be safer than those widely used pharmaceuticals.
I love that. I love that because, like I said, it's been demonized for so long, saying that it was for horses. Then it's like, only for parasites. But like there are so many studies, and even like you said, for even early treatment for COVID, like if you catch COVID or even flu, early treatment, like in small doses, it just wipes it out so quickly, and you recover so quickly. That's something that me and Minna noticed, like before we did with the whole, whole nasal sprays, we did ozone treatments, I did hyperbaric to get back quicker. But since we start trying ivermectin in like 3 days, it's like it's not even a flu. It didn't even feel like a flu. It was so mild, right? So for sure, I love sharing that information, and thank you for confirming that ivermectin, there's promise in that, because like once again, all people know about cancer is just radiation and chemo, and most of the time the radiation and chemo is actually what kills you over time, because it lowers your immune system so badly that you usually die from something else, right? And I just really like to share with our audience and all the viewers out there just different lifestyle, holistic prevention modalities, right? So, Nicolas, for all of us here on Chronic Healthy Life, we really believe in empowering the body to heal. I really believe that body has the innate intelligence to heal itself. I almost call it II. Like, people talk about AI. Well, I think we have II. We actually have innate intelligence. What do you suggest? Like, what is your message out there for people out there to strengthen their immune resilience and even reduce risks for, because right now they're having another COVID scare, right? I don't want people lining up, rolling the arms up and getting another shot, because, we're talking about how dangerous the shots are. Right now we're coming towards winter. Some people are already in winter, depending on what state you are. What are the best ways to boost their immune resilience and reduce risk?
Yeah, so there's many different ways, and they start. So step number one, don't roll up your sleeve and get another injection. Right,
Yeah.
that's step number one.
Mhm.
Don't get vaccine-induced AIDS. Don't get VAIDS. Don't go down that route. That's not going to help. So that's step number one. Step number two is quite clearly, and the evidence all shows it, is lifestyle. Lifestyle, including proper exercise, proper movement, at least 7,000 steps a day if you can. Not looking at sitting down, sedentary, looking at a screen for 12 hours. Getting natural light, natural spectrum light, not just LED lights for 12 hours in a day. Basic things like that. Eat a diet, obviously. If you go and eat, some great, wholesome, nutritious foods, whole foods, and not hyper-processed garbage, that will automatically reduce your risks of certain things and improve the immune system, because it won't have to be battling off these toxins in the Doritos, and the red 40s and all the other garbage, the seed oils and all the garbage. It won't have to be battling those. So eat a good diet. But then, and this is key with lifestyle, but it also ties into kind of biochemical, is vitamin D status and getting sunlight. This is critical. This is absolutely critical. You want to get adequate, preferably full body sunlight exposure as much as you can, and this will significantly improve immune function, documented in thousands of studies. When you bring up vitamin D, that's what happens. Now, many people will be in the northern latitudes in the wintertime. They won't get sun. They won't get sun at the proper angle, because the earth is now too far tilted for them to kind of get that right angle. So in that case, they will have to find different ways. And I know, some people say they don't like to take vitamin D supplements. Some people even say, it's toxic to take it that way. I don't know in that aspect a lot, but what I do know is vitamin D is critical. Get that level up. And even some people, they have lamps, vitamin D lamps.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, for the winter time. So you can look those up. They're about $500-$600. They're kind of expensive.
Mhm.
But if you want to get vitamin D through skin exposure, that's the way to do it. So then there's that. And then you have all those bases covered. Your immune function will already be good because the diet's covering all of your proper minerals and vitamins. You need adequate vitamin C's. That's critical. We know that. We know zinc for immune function. Also, all this stuff. And then minimizing exposure to toxins is also critical. So again, so many things. I know we're reaching the end of the time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nicolas. I don't want to cut you off because you're providing so much information that's just gold. So quickly, Nicolas, what's the best way for people to follow your research team, and be up to date with all your latest studies?
Yes, the best place to see the most expansive, comprehensive list of the breaking news will be our Substack, thefocalpoints.com. But I will be posting daily on my X account at Nick Hulscher. I post there every single day. Substack, maybe it's not every day, but go to both, follow both, and you'll stay up to date.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. So, friends, this conversation isn't about fear. It's really about freedom through knowledge. And that's it for this week's Chronically Healthy Life. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for sharing the space with us, Nicolas. We're so honored for you to be a part of our journey. Join us here every Friday at 7 p.m. CST on e360tv.com on the Vitality TV network, or watch us replay at youtube.com at Chronically Healthy Life. Make sure to check out our chronicallyhealthylife.com. Until next time, stay vibrant, stay strong, and stay chronically healthy. Thank you, Nicolas.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next week.